Welcome to the Pathways to Stillness podcast series. I am Dr. Gary Irwin Kenyon. I created this series as a follow-up to my book, Pathways to Stillness, Reflect, Release, Renew, which is available from Amazon, Indigo, and Friesen Press, and also in audiobook form from Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. In this second episode of my conversation with Daphne Noonan and Ashley King, co-founders of Person-Centered Universe, we hear about their experiences and challenges as entrepreneurs and what Person-Centered Universe offers their clients. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about being an entrepreneur, because I know you both wear two hats. You work in long-term care, and you might say what you're doing in that regard. You're executive director of Nashwauk Villa and at Mill Cove in New Brunswick. But maybe a little bit about the entrepreneurial side of it. That I know you've told me, you don't have an idea what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to tell the story for you, Ashley, but about the expectations
Mm-hmm.
and the ups and downs. Do you want to say a little bit more about that part of it?
Yeah, I'll chime in first to pick up on Ashley's point that she made there at the end of her story, which is that I think that part of what we didn't realize when we first started Person-Centered Universe, we had this nugget of an idea, but our whole background really, other than Ashley's family, background and whatnot, but our professional background in a volunteer experience, both of us have volunteered on the boards for like nationally for the Alzheimer's Society and provincially. Everything was nonprofit, and we had nonprofit experience. And so I think that part of what made it really challenging for us, that we didn't know what we didn't know in those first 4 years of having Person-Centered Universe, it was more just a labor of love, and we were really applying kind of a nonprofit business lens to our business, which is really a social enterprise, right? And those are two very different business models. And so it took us a few years to kind of have that aha moment. And once we did, it was almost like the business was born again, right? Like it was, because it was like all of a sudden we started to realize, oh, this could actually be something much bigger than what we had initially anticipated as a labor of love and whatnot. So I would say, and Ashley, you articulate much better than I the day-to-day challenges with your stories of like the unglamour of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've definitely started on my Instagram page the real life as being an entrepreneur, because it's very different and much more unglamorous than one makes it seem in many ways. But that's it. I think for us, I refer to our business essentially having a second awakening, if you will. So we had the first iteration of our business where Daphne and I were really, as Daphne expressed in her story, we were really looking at Person-Centered Universe as a labor of love and just a way to get our souls fed and give back to the existing communities in which we worked and our colleagues and friends. And it wasn't until 2017, so we've been in existence since 2013, but it really wasn't until 2017 that we put any thought of it being more than that in our heads and on paper especially. And so it was really interesting, and it's been a really fun, stressful, and exciting journey because, from the labor of love standpoint, when you don't have a lot of expectations and you don't have, predetermined needs for a business, it's a lot easier to conduct business. But when you need to sustain people and you want to hit certain targets and you need to market yourself, that's when the real fun and the real stress starts to come. And so we've seen since 2017 exponential growth. I think prior to 2017, we were selling something that people didn't know that they needed.
Hmm.
And I think a mix of the the long-term care culture was changing and shifting to one of person-centered care. We were becoming more visible. We participated in a business accelerator, which caused us to really see value and see opportunity in our business. And we also, I think as well, it just happened that Daphne and I had matured and had learned significantly, moved beyond that, looking at applying a non-for-profit lens to a for-profit business. And so that was really when we started to see, okay, there's real opportunity here. The culture in long-term care is ready, and so let's look at what this actually can be. What
Mhm.
else is possible with this business? And
Yeah.
that's when we really started to change our approach, I think, with
And
our
that's
business.
really where the vision, and I think it's almost like it's where we started to articulate what we had never articulated, right? Which is we're not in the business just to be in business. We're in business because we have a passion for this particular issue. And our vision is all about making the world a better place for people who are living with dementia or walking a journey with a loved one. And we're very passionate about that. And so what makes it really hard, and Gary, you'll probably relate to this, is when you're really ignited about something and passionate about, oh, we can help and we can change the world, and that's like the very essence of what it means to be a social enterprise kind of entrepreneur, and then the world doesn't feel ready for you, or you're getting that, it's like, but we don't, you don't understand, like we can help, and there's huge gaps, and I mean, it definitely feeds our soul so much still, I think, but it isn't without its ups and downs as well, right? And I think that there's been more times, in the last few years that we've been really, really ignited and happy than there, but then those times when they come, like Ashley mentioned, we have 2 employees now, and you're thinking, especially in light of COVID the last few months, it's a tremendous responsibility to be a business owner as well, right? And to be thinking about, and we've had to pivot in the last few months to figure out really quickly how we can meet people where they're at, which is, in the middle of a pandemic where people were stuck at home, and the whole world was upside down in healthcare and everything. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure. One that I think, Gary, you mentioned, referenced what we do in our other lives. And I think part of my growth as a person and as a professional has been, I've been working, as you know, Gary, but not your audience might not, that I work in a full time job as the executive director of a small long term care home in New Brunswick. And I've really, through that experience, I think at Nashwauk Villa is the name of my place where I work. And we've had a huge focus, and we've worked really hard over the last 4 years to establish a true culture of person centered care, and that feeling of like what it should be like when you walk into a long term care home. And a lot of that work, as hard as it has been, it's a lot to affect culture change in a 40-year-old organization,
Mhm.
and which is what my home is. But it really helped to reinforce what we were doing at Person Centered Universe, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing on the ground, in my organization, Nashwauk Villa, this is what is needed. And then I'm seeing it not only for the benefit of the residents and their families, but for the benefit of my staff and like the mental health of my staff and the community around us. It's like magic when you get that recipe right for culture, and Person Centered Universe has a big part to play in that, for especially for healthcare organizations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
just to go back to the entrepreneurial thing for a minute,
Mhm.
being a professor for 33 years, once I had that job, I didn't really have that issue. But now that I've written this book, my passion is to share this with as many people as I can. And so now and we've shared a couple of these things before, ideas before. Now I'm seeing that as Ashley, you wrote somewhere, one day it's wonderful, there's a big breakthrough and everybody loves you. And the next day nothing's going on.
Mm,
Mhm.
And as you're saying, you can't, you need this. This is really important, but you don't understand.
mm, mhm.
So, but I
Yeah.
guess if you begin with it as it is my passion or our passion to be sharing this knowledge and information and wisdom with anybody who's interested, then you just try and do your best and
Mm.
hope that the monetary part of it will at least cover you as you're trying to grow
Yes.
things. What you're doing to me, you mentioned something earlier about you're telling a story for people who can't really talk for themselves. They can't. You're co-authoring, as we'd say in narrative gerontology, you're co-authoring a story with those who are not able to express it well. And am I correct in thinking it's not just the dementia survivors that would be your clients, but families, friends, everyone else who also doesn't really know how to understand that story or what to do with it. So to me, you're bringing more meaning to care, more, I would say, stillness ultimately to people's lives who can't tell their own story. Could you say a little bit about, like, if I was, they say your elevator pitch, what
Mhm.
what do you offer your clients in a bit more specific terms? Like if I came to you and said, I need some help here. I think it sounds like person-centered universe could help me. What sorts of, I guess you'd say, services or products do you offer? Do you give me some sense of that?
Before you do, Ash, I'm going to take our nonlinear approach here and just say I want to just kind of finalize something that you said there, Gary, just on the business end of things, and then and yeah, I would love to share the services of PCU. Like when you said, about one day it's all good, and then the next day, you feel down or whatever. But what I think it's really I'm relating it back to just in that moment. I was thinking about relating it back to your work with what you teach about stillness and it's really the definition of manifesting, right? Like, so it's like if you just stop trying to force it to happen is what I think now in retrospect, Ashley and I can say, like, just when you stop just trying to grind and make everything within your control of like how are we going to get this done and this and this and this then all of a sudden beautiful opportunities will show up,
Mm,
right?
wonderful.
If you just stop kind of trying to that I always think about that image of I think it might have been you, is it you or Bill, one of you in your classes, and it's like a cartoon of a man, and
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
like holding the bars of
Mhm.
a thing, and he's trying to get himself out of jail, but really there's no he's not in a jail cell. He's just holding on to the window bar thing, right? Like, yeah, that's what I think resistance is sneaks in on you, and if you let go of that resistance, anyway, I just didn't want to
Yeah, yeah,
let that because it really
yeah,
strikes me that the work that you're doing is probably helping not only people who you're thinking of like in traditional settings of healthcare and you know going about their lives, but it has a real space to help entrepreneurs as well, right?
yeah. I think the Lao Tzu says, "Don't push the river," right?
Mm,
Yes,
Yeah,
mm,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I think this is a good segue because I will say, at the beginning, I think we were trying to push the river. So now we've developed into kind of a full service boutique style agency in which we provide support for three different groups of customers. So we support individuals and their families and friends living at home. We support businesses, and then we support healthcare organizations. And so initially, when we started, we only had so many services that were really only focused on healthcare, but trying to apply them in so many different ways. And it wasn't until we really thought strategically about the business that we were able to really see and understand and use both Daphne and I's experience as executives in long-term care to understand what the need was. And so we built out those services. So I'll go through each of the different customer profiles or different types of customers, if you will, based on our services. So we provide support for families and individuals living with dementia who require or want to see a better world for those living with dementia and really understanding that they know that they can have good quality of life while still at home. So we help them with all different aspects of the journey in which they're going through. So that service is called Dementia Journey Coaching. And we help them to, continue to live independently. We help them to be fulfilled and enriched and engaged in their communities and by things that fulfill them and by doing activities that fulfill them. And we can also provide support by guiding families through the process and to access services in which they require and which would support them to stay at home longer. um, for our healthcare organizations and long-term care organizations, we provide a full suite of dementia care services and education, as well as consulting that includes dementia care mapping, in which we improve the quality of life and improve the quality of care, both for the individual who's living with dementia by understanding, their care needs and their stories, if you will, and then applying a narrative approach to how we can integrate that narrative into the care plan and really applying person-centered dementia care deeply, deeply, you know, ingraining it in culture through organizations. We can, provide a full suite of services on that. We also provide education for organizations to really inform leaders in person-centered dementia care and quality dementia care practices. And so that's a nice course. We're actually really proud that we found it and
Mhm.
we deliver it because it really encourages leaders who can then mentor their colleagues in being true person-centered dementia care leaders in their organizations. And then Daphne, regarding the business aspect of
Yeah.
our business, maybe you'd like to share.
Yeah, there's a new, so we have I guess it's our newest area of our suite of services, which is focuses on non-healthcare organizations. So businesses such as coffee shops and restaurants, or maybe local banks and things like that, that provide services in the community to people. And so we've actually, and this is another layer to our kind of full circle story. She's not here today, unfortunately, but one of our employees, Rachel Neal, is really the gem that's kind of heading up this whole section of our business. She's done a lot of the development, and Rachel is also a STU grad, and she's from the JERO program, and she's someone that has been very open to mentorship from Ashley and I, and she's now worked for our business for 3 years. But we've really focused on with that section is developing the concept of we're calling it dementia friendly business ambassador training. And so, what that essentially is it's an inclusion, right? And helping businesses to support individuals who are living with dementia or the caregivers of those individuals. And you really think of it as, you know, people who have dementia. I think that it's something, I don't know the most current statistic, but about 2%, 2.5% of individuals who are living with dementia actually live in long term care. And so when you think about that in the scheme of things, people with dementia are going to the bank and they're going to restaurants and they're going to the grocery store and riding the bus and whatnot. And so, what I think really with this piece, it was kind of like, and I don't think it'll ever be done because I think as entrepreneurs, you'll always be thinking of, new and innovative things, but it really has kind of brought the whole picture together with the third stream of focus is this business piece. Because if you think about what our vision is, I guess, which is a better world for people who are living with dementia, right? It's, I'm reminded, I know it was a very popular book a few years ago, but the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's a great book if you haven't read it. But it's the whole idea of, again, bringing it back to our why, right? It's the why of our business is that we want to change the experience for people who are living this journey. And so when we added that third piece, it was like, okay, this is the piece that's been missing. Now we've kind of feels like we've got some gaps in the system and in that world kind of covered a little bit. So it's been really nice, and yeah, it's really fun to watch the business owners. We're sort of still in very early stages with that one. We've done a pilot program with the Halifax Chamber of Commerce, and there's been some really
Hmm.
interesting conversations with businesses in the Halifax area that you just see how eager they are and how just really, really innovative business owners and leaders of corporations that really do want to create that kind of inclusive environment and stuff. So it's going to be really cool to see where that goes. And yeah, it's one of the things that I think probably worth mentioning, that we were, prior to the COVID outbreak that's kind of rocked the world the last few months, we were kind of in a place just before where we had come to a pretty strong realization that we wanted to move our business to a more virtual, online space, so that we could expand our reach. And so it's interesting, again, in the face of what, going back to that point of, not having resistance, is that, of course there were a few weeks where we were feeling pretty down when the global pandemic hit. And we have a dear friend from Amsterdam, Razeb Chowdhury, who is the CEO of Lifelong Inspiration, who helped us to see the opportunity in that, and knowing that our business. And so we wanted to move to that space of kind of the more virtual supports and education, and because we want it to be accessible, right? That's a huge consideration for people who are living with dementia, is, having accessibility to services like ours, because it's often not easy when you have a loved one at home to like stop everything and go attend a support group, or things like that. So anyway, it's I guess if you are planning to ask the question of how COVID has impacted us, it absolutely has. But it's, again, that, how do we seize the opportunity instead of really just feeling down about it and whatnot. It's been hectic, but I think we were sort of almost in a perfect place.
And we were already talking the talk, if you
Mhm,
will. It was just a matter of, with COVID and with all
mhm,
of our services, as you said, Daphne, we've already had kind of identified that we wanted to move more implicitly online with our programs, not just for the families who are providing support to loved ones living with dementia, but also for healthcare providers, because of their, work schedules, their capability to be able to be pulled, taken off the floor to access training and education and support. So we've recognized that need, and if COVID has taught us anything, it's kind of been the kick in the butt that we needed, to really move our services as much as we possibly can in these online environments. And I think the big component of whether it's providing services for businesses, for families, or for healthcare organizations, our services are all built on relationships and communication and support. And so, how do we navigate that now using online platforms and online mediums?
Great, just great.
You should have considered inviting both of us on, because we always say brevity is neither of our strong suits.
No, yeah,
Oh no, this
we are available for more though.
available. Yeah.
We could
Um,
come back again.
yes, definitely. Thank you for listening to the Pathways to Stillness podcast series. My book, Pathways to Stillness: Reflect, Release, Renew, is available on Amazon, Indigo Chapters, and Friesen Press. It is also available in audiobook form from Audible, Amazon, and iTunes.